Julian was no one special in the eyes of the world. He didn't have a car, didn't come from money, and didn't own much more than the books he loved and the words he scribbled into old notebooks. He worked at a small bookstore on the corner of Main Street, a place where time seemed to slow down. Books lined every wall, and the scent of paper and dust was something Julian had grown to love. Then one day, she walked in. She wasn't loud or demanding. She simply stepped into his world, quietly, like a page turning without sound. Her name was Adrienne. She had a lavender scarf, a leather-bound journal in her hand, and eyes that looked like they'd read 1,000 stories and still wanted more. Julian watched her, unsure whether to speak or stay silent, so he did what he knew best. He wrote. A week later, when Adrienne came back to buy a poetry book, Julian slipped something into her bag. It was a small, folded paper with his handwriting. Some stories aren't told with words. They live in glances, smiles, and unspoken silence. But if I could choose one page to write on, I'd choose you. The next time she came in, she walked straight to the counter and handed him a small note in return. It said, "Your words found me. Don't stop writing." It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something. Julian began to look forward to Adrienne's visits. They talked about books, poetry, and the kind of dreams you only say out loud when the world feels quiet. One evening, under the golden streetlight outside the store, Julian finally said it. "Adrienne, I think I'm falling for you." Adrienne was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke gently. "Julian, you have a beautiful heart, but my father, he believes a man must build something before he asks for someone else's future." Julian looked down. He understood, and he made a promise not to her, but to himself. He would become someone worthy. The next day, Julian left the bookstore. He had no plan, just passion. He built a website from scratch, offering poetry cards, handmade journals, and personalized writing gifts. For months, nothing worked. Sales were slow. Some nights he went to sleep hungry, but every time he wanted to give up, he opened Adrienne's old note, "Don't stop writing." So, he did in single quotes and then, one day, his inbox pinged. A popular blog had featured his story, the bookstore boy who turned his pain into poetry. Orders poured in. His website crashed. He cried alone in his room, not because he was sad, but because it was finally happening. Mr. Brooks, Adrienne's father. Read the article. He invited Julian to dinner. Julian wore his best shirt and brought a framed version of one of his best-selling poems. Mr. Brooks listened silently. Then he said, "You didn't chase my daughter with promises. You chased your purpose. That's the kind of man I trust." Julian didn't speak. His heart was too full. Later that night, Adrienne held his hand and whispered, "I never needed a man with money. I just needed someone who wouldn't quit." A few months later, Julian invited Adrienne to the old bookstore. It had closed down, but he had rented it for a day. Fairy lights, old books, and one open journal on the table. Inside, it said, "Some stories begin quietly. Ours began with silence. But today, let me write the rest with you by my side. Will you marry me?" Adrienne nodded. No words were needed. Julian didn't become a millionaire. He didn't own a mansion, but he built something even better: trust, love, and a life full of purpose. As they walked into their simple new home, Adrienne smiled and said, "You gave me the kind of love people write books about." Julian replied, "And you gave me the reason to write mine." Moral of the story: love isn't about having everything, it's about becoming someone worthy of it. A quiet beginning doesn't mean an ordinary ending. When love meets purpose, it creates something timeless.